All right, guys. Welcome back to the WMMA Scene Report. It's been a few weeks since I've done one of this, so forgive me if I'm a little rusty. I've just been so busy with work lately and other things going on. So, I'm going to break it down like I always do. We always go over first things up is fight results for the past week or so. We're going to go back about a week and a half on this tonight. Then we're going to go over some news and announcements. Not many, surprisingly, in the past week. And then we're going to go over the upcoming fights for this coming weekend. So, going to get started here in just a second. Let me bring up the fight results here. All right, so fight results. We're going to start with Pancrase 304. This happened not this past Sunday, but last Sunday before that. Had 3 ladies fights on it. I called it they were raiding the retirement home, as it were, just because the age of some of the fighters on it. First fight up was Myra at 125 pounds. Myra Cantoria defeated Emiko Raika by submission due to armbar at 3 minutes 17 seconds, round number 1. So Cantoria climbed to 5-3. Raika fell to 9-6. Next up at 115 pounds, Emi Fujino defeated Ksenia Gruseva by unanimous decision after 3 rounds. Fujino climbed to 23-11. Ksenia fell to 4-1. And then finally at 125 pounds, co-main event for the flyweight title, flyweight queen of Pancrase, as they like to call it. Sidi Roca defeated Takayo Hashi by unanimous decision. Roca climbed to 11-5. Hashi fell to 16-7. Moving on to the next weekend at UFC on ESPN Plus 7, aka UFC Fight Night St. Petersburg. There were just the one fight. Roxanne Modafferi defeated Antonina Shevchenko by split decision. 2 judges saw it 29-28 for Modafferi. 1 judge saw it 29-28 for Shevchenko. I don't know what that judge was watching. It was definitely 2 rounds to 1 for Modafferi. Improved Modafferi. She might be 36 years old, but she continues to improve every fight you see her. She seems to finally have the whole strengthening and conditioning thing going for her now. She hired a full-time S&C coach, and she was doing very good at cutting off the angles in the stand-up against Shevchenko, which allowed her to get the fight to the ground. So congrats to Roxy, the nerd queen of MMA. And then Verizon number 15, this was late Saturday night, early Sunday morning, depending on where you're living. First up, late replacement Kanako Murata defeated Soraya Orozco by submission due to Von Flue choke at 2 minutes 12 seconds of round number 2. This fight was all Murata. She may have only come in on a week notice, but like I said in my fight review video for this one, when you can really wrestle, it's almost like having a cheat code in women's WMMA, women's mixed in women's divisions. Orozco was just not prepared for a wrestler. She was actually preparing for Juju Auclair. So next up, Kana Watanabe defeated Justina Zofia Haba by decision. Watanabe climbed to 7-0. Haba fell to 1-1. In case you're wondering why I did not do a review video for this, I couldn't bring myself to watch this fight a second time. It just wasn't very good at all. Just wasn't worth the second watch. This was supposed to be like a layup for Watanabe. I mean, taking on a fight, she was coming in 6-0, taking on a fighter who was 1-0. Just came off her first pro fight. This is actually like kind of a punishment for Haba for beating their hopeful star Shinju Nozawa Auclair, Juju. So this should have been, one of those fights that Watanabe should have walked away with, and she didn't. She got lit up on her feet and had to keep taking the fight to the ground, which is her specialty anyway. She's a judoka. Anyway, if you haven't watched it, don't bother. It wasn't very good. And then finally, Reina Kubota defeated Samantha Jean-Francois due to unanimous decision. Reina is continuing to improve as an overall mixed martial artist. You know, her first few fights, she was really just coming in with her shoot boxing style. You know, she'd take fighters down and go for the quick submission, but she wasn't really aware of what to do during the scrambles, or she just light her opponents up on the feet. Reina is continuing to improve as a mixed martial artist, but it's still not the prettiest thing going on. You know, Ryzen is just going to have to keep feeding her these, like, you know, like slight soft touches for a while. And that's going to get harder too, because eventually fighters are going to be like, if she's, you know, 10-2 or whatever, they're not going to want to fight her. You know, the less experienced fighters, unless they do it for an easy payday, which is known to happen in MMA. So that was it for this past weekend. So let's move on to the news here. So you might have heard about the case of Angela Magana. So she was scheduled to fight for Combate Americas, the Reina's card this weekend. So she had a problem with her back. So she went in to get a nerve blocker done. I don't know anything about that process. All I know is they have to put you under. And she had a bad reaction, I guess, to the anesthetic. She went into a coma for 2 days. She is now out of that coma and hopefully will make a full recovery and maybe even get back to fighting eventually. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of Angela Magana, but, you know, I want to wish her a full recovery and, you know, good luck and everything on that. Continuing in the news, former UFC and Invicta FC fighter, bantamweight and flyweight, and sometime featherweight, or one-time featherweight, Leslie Smith, Leslie the Peacemaker Smith, a.k.a. some people like to call her Chick Diaz, has signed on to Bellator to fight in the 145-pound division. She sent out a tweet or IG post thanking Gilbert and Kerry Melendez for advising her on her career path. She is, from what I understand, she is still seeking to help start the Fighters Union through Project Spearhead. Of course, she's going to fight at featherweight in Bellator instead of bantamweight because they don't have a bantamweight division. And also, I read somewhere that she realized that she was anorexic for a while, so she's definitely not going to be cutting down to flyweight. So good luck to Leslie Smith in her new venture in Bellator MMA. Also in the news, at 125 pounds, Ariana Lipski, 11-4, versus Molly McCann, 8-2, are set, or at least planned to fight UFC Fight Night Greenville. That's June 22nd. Lipski is coming off a loss in her UFC debut to Joanne Calderwood, I believe by submission, maybe by decision, I can't remember. And Molly McCann is coming off her first win. She is now 1-1 in the UFC. She's coming off a unanimous decision win. Is it unanimous or split? I can't remember. Over, Priscilla Cachera about a month back in England. Not the best fight, that one, but this should be a good one. You know, it's two people who like to strike and are going to look to throw punches at each other's faces and probably block very little of them. So if you're a Just Bleed fan, it should be very exciting. Also in the news, a little bit of bad news here. So Nico Montano is announced had received a 6-month suspension from the U.S. Anti-Doping Agency for testing positive for Osterine from a test dated from October 25th. Apparently, they found the amount that they found in there was a trace amount that could be contributed. It was a small enough amount that it could be contributed to possible contamination of supplements. Now, she has updated and said that they haven't found anything in her supplements, but she is continuing to work with USADA and thank them. So she will be eligible on May 25th for her next fight. Also in the news, UFC keeping up with the flyweight news. At 125 pounds, Wu Yanan is out of her fight versus Luana Carolina for UFC 237 May 11th. Priscilla Cachoeira has replaced her. So instead of being China versus Brazil, it's now Brazil versus Brazil for that preliminary fight. Carolina, I believe, she's making her UFC debut. I believe she is 3-0 as a pro. Priscilla Cachoeira is currently 0-2 in UFC. She got destroyed in a horrible mismatch against Valentina Shevchenko, and then she just lost that decision to Molly McCann that I had alluded to earlier. And then finally, in the UFC news, again, flyweight news. You know, it's the fastest growing division in the UFC. Romanian flyweight Diana Belbita, who holds a 12-4 record and is 22 years old, has signed with the UFC. Now, Belbita has a loss to Ariana Lipski and several others. No notable wins on her record. In fact, if you look at her record, it is not very pretty at all. But she's pretty. I mean, her record's not pretty. She is. So I guess she has that going for her, and UFC likes pretty faces. So looking forward to seeing who they match her up with. So we went over last couple weekends fights. We've gone over the latest news. So let's get now up to this weekend's events. So even before we get to this weekend, One Warrior Series of 5 is taking place tomorrow, Thursday the 25th. That's going to start at 4 a.m. Eastern Time. One Warrior Series is an event based on a reality show hosted by Rich Franklin. He's in charge of the whole One Warrior Series thing. Basically, it's a mix of Dana White's Looking for a Fight, Ultimate Fighter, the Contender Series. It kind of combines like all three of those UFC things into one. It's actually a very good show, if kind of predictable. You know, almost everybody they feature on it has some heart-wrenching story or some struggle. It's right up One Championship's alley. You know, they're all about mixed martial arts, getting everybody through whatever difficulties in their life. So there are 3 ladies' fights scheduled for tomorrow's event. First up, at 115 pounds, their so-called atomweight division, Ji-yeon Seo, 6-3 out of South Korea, is taking on Japanese Yuko Suzuki, 7-8. So I'm more familiar with Seo than Suzuki. Last I checked, Seo is still in high school, or she might have just graduated. She's only like 18 years old. Already a 6-3 record. 2 of her losses come to the same person. And Yuko Suzuki, last time I saw her was at the last One Warrior Series event, and she was getting dominated on the. She's supposed to be a ground specialist, but was getting dominated on the ground by another Korean girl who was coming from a kickboxing background. So this should be an easy win for Ji-yeon Seo, who last fought in December, I believe. November, December. Next up at 100 and which one is it? 125 pounds. No, actually, I'm sorry. Topology has its 125 pounds. One Championship is listed at 115 pounds. Out of India, Neha Kashyap, 0-1, is taking on Roshni Kara out of Malaysia, who is also 0-1. I don't know either of these two. Never heard of them before. And then finally, at 125 pounds, Christy Obst, who is making her pro debut, is taking on Spain's Claudia Diaz, 0-1. Another set to people that I don't know. I mean, One Championship is about, you know, finding new fighters that can hopefully step up into the big One Championship card. So I'm going to get up for that one, mostly just for the Seo versus Suzuki fight, and there's a few other Koreans I want to see on there. Also, there is one good fight on there. On the men's side, Alan Philpott, 17-10, big fighter out of Cage Warriors, and he's fought all over the world. Really, he's taking on Min Jong Song. He's a former Road FC featherweight interim champ, I believe, or might have been flyweight. I can't remember. That's at 145 pounds. That should be an interesting fight, but that's on the men's side. What else is this weekend? Combate Americas, their Combate Arenas card. So this fight is loaded with ladies' fights. I think the entire main card, except for one fight, is all no, two fights on the main card are men, and they're 1, 2, 3. So 3 ladies' fights, all main event or below. 2 men's fights on the main card, and 1, 2, 3 ladies' fights to 2 on the prelims as well. So I hope Topology is right about this. First up, prelim at 120 pounds is an amateur fight. Destiny Vasquez making her debut, taking on Sydney Trillo, 2-1. Also in the amateur division at 135 pounds, Nancy Nava making her debut against Lucero Acosta. Don't know any of these ladies. Also on the prelim, Yasmin, I'm going to butcher this name, Haragai, 1-0, is taking on Daniela Espinosa, making her pro debut. That's at 125 pounds. And then moving up to the main card, at 105 pounds, atom weights, Paulina Granados, 4-3, is taking on, she Puerto Rican? What's her full name? They abbreviated it. Gloria Isabel Brava Barrios. She's out of Santiago, Chile. Excuse me. She is 4-4. I don't think I'm familiar with Barrios. I might have watched her on a previous Combate card. I don't remember. They're usually late at night and I'm drinking while I'm watching these. In the co-main event, they're listing this at 105, but I'm pretty sure it's at 115. Kira Batara at 7-4 is taking on Francis Hernandez, 3-3. In fact, I know this is at strawweight. It's at 115 because this is Batara's debut strawweight fight for Combate. Before then, she always fought in the atomweight division, and she missed weight her last 3 fights at 105, which is why, really, that's why she's moving up to strawweight. And then in the main event, Super Melly, Melissa Martinez, 5-0, is taking on Carolyn Gallardo, also out of Chile. She is 3-2. Super Melly, guys, can't miss. She can't miss nonstop action. So that's taking place Friday. It's airing in the U.S. on DAZN, or I guess if you have access to it, you can watch the Spanish broadcast on Univision. So if you want to watch that. However, I'm scheduling. I already have it scheduled. I'm going to do my fight companion for that event. I think that has enough ladies fights on it that it's a can't miss for me. So I'll be doing a live fight companion for that event. So if you want, be sure to tune in. We'll have some fun. I don't take Combate cards as seriously as I do if I were doing an Invicta event or a UFC event. Combate cards are just more about having fun. Because they are fun, guys, man. They're nonstop action. There's very few boring fights. One of their mottos is mucho más acción. So be sure to check that out if you get a chance. Saturday night, UFC on ESPN Plus number 8, aka UFC Fight Night for Lauderdale. I think they're calling it UFC Sunrise. I like to call it UFC Fight Night Fort Lauderdale. First up at 115 pounds, Angela Hill, 8-6. She's coming in on a week and a half notice, replacing the injured Jessica Penny. Penny again pulled out of this fight due to injury. Hill is taking on Jody Escobar, coming in at 6-4. For this fight, if Hill does not gas out after the first round, I have her winning against Escobar. It's tough to say though, because ever since she adopted the typical Alliance MMA style of busy footwork, but not necessarily effective footwork, she tends to tire herself out a lot more. I mean, has gone 5 rounds before, but now she tends to tire herself out. So I have her winning that by decision. And then also at 115 pounds, the former UFC and Invicta strawweight champion Carla Esparza, 13-6, is taking on former Invicta strawweight champion Verna Jandiroba, 14-0, perfect record. Jandiroba is making the call up to fight Esparza after Esparza's original opponent. Why don't I just look it up? It's easier that way. Livia Hanata Souza, I can never remember her name, poor girl. Livia Hanata Souza had to pull out due to injury. I think this fight's honestly more interesting than the original fight when it was Esparza versus Souza. I think Jandiroba is very similar style-wise to Esparza, so it should make for a very good stylistic matchup. See who can implement whose style a little better. I did a full preview video on this, so please go check it out. And then finally, on Saturday night as well, airing exclusively on DAZN, Bellator 220 Flyweight Championship co-main event. Flyweight Championship, Ilima McFarlane is putting her not only her title but her perfect 9-0 record on the line against Vida Ortega, who's coming in at 5-2. I also did a full preview video on this. You have the brawler in Ortega versus the submission specialist in McFarlane. She's finished 7 of her 9 fights by submission. You know, I think I might have mentioned this in a previous stream. I'm not the biggest fan of this matchup. I think that they had a better matchup, or at least a more deserving matchup, for McFarlane and Juliana Velasquez, who is currently 3-0 in Bellator. So perfect record, 3 wins, no losses in Bellator. But they went with Ortega. Now, I did see an interview today, or like a quote from Ilima McFarlane. She said, if you're not a fan of this matchup, or if you think that it's a mismatch, it's because you're casual. No, we just think that there was a better matchup, okay? Juliana Velasquez fought the night before Ilima McFarlane fought. Both of those events were in Hawaii, so the timing was perfect. Velasquez got a win over Alejandra Lara, who was McFarlane's first title defense and previous opponent. It was just a better, and Velasquez is just as good on the ground as McFarlane, if not better, and she's good on the feet as well. So it was a much, well, honestly, it was much tougher. It would have been a much tougher matchup for McFarlane. So it's not about being a casual. Not if you don't like this matchup, it's just not the best matchup available, at least in my humble opinion. Okay, maybe not so humble, but it is my honest opinion that her versus Velasquez would have been a better matchup. Anyway, guys, that's just about all I have for tonight. So 3 events this weekend featuring the ladies. Well, yeah, if you count Friday, Saturday as the weekend, and 3 events. Also, one Warrior Series tomorrow morning early. And then next weekend, we have the Invicta Phoenix Rising Series, which I will be in attendance for again. So look for a preview video, a live preview, maybe Wednesday, maybe Thursday night. Thursday night's the weigh-ins, so I might do it after the weigh-ins before I go out and get Blotto, because I'm going to be partying for like 4 straight nights in Kansas City. And then the night after that is UFC Ottawa. Let me see if I can bring that card up real quick here. No, One Jamie doesn't have a fight, I think. Here it is. UFC Fight Night, Ottawa. Has one ladies fight on that card next weekend, next Saturday. Sarah Moore is 5-4, taking on Macy Chason, 4-0. Macy Chason stepping in to replace Leah Letson, who bowed out, I believe, due to injury. So 3 events this weekend, 2 next weekend. I'll be at Invicta. Hopefully I can find a place to watch the Ottawa event besides my hotel room. Of course, the great thing about having a tablet is you can, and it's on ESPN, you can watch it wherever you want. So that's it for me tonight, guys. I ran about 25 minutes. I started about 5 minutes late, unfortunately. Sorry about that. Although I guess my usual pattern. Although I hate starting late. Anyway, guys, that's all I have. Have a good night. Looking forward to a great night of fights. Look forward to doing some reviews on at least 2 of the fights this weekend. Anyway, that's all I have. Let me know what you think about it. No one was in the chat tonight, so in the comments down below. And what are you waiting for? Subscribe to WMMA now, the best, fastest growing women's mixed martial arts dedicated platform on YouTube. Guys, have a good night.